Hey, everybody. Mike Guglielmi, Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast. USA World Cup Time Machine 2002, Korea and Japan. The best World Cup for United States, at least in recent memory. Thanks for joining Sons of a Pitch Soccer Podcast.
Well, hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us again on our World Cup Time Machine here with the Sons of a Pitch, an American soccer podcast. I'm Nick Pateris, along with Mike Guglielmi, and we are bringing you everything you need to know about World Cup 2002 from the U.S. men's national team perspective. And like Mike said, this was one of the best World Cups for the United States, finishing 8th place overall. So that means for that cycle, the United States was the 8th best footballing soccer nation in the world of some 190 some plus FIFA members. An excellent World Cup for the United States. Now, this one was jointly hosted by South Korea and Japan, the 17th FIFA World Cup. First time ever that you had two host nations, and really kind of setting the stage for World Cup 2026, allowing the US, Mexico, and Canada to be the three nations that jointly host the World Cup. But let's get back to 2002. That's why we're here. Now, how did this World Cup shake out? Brazil won the World Cup. Shocking, right? A nation like Brazil getting another World Cup trophy. I think this was their 5th one, maybe. They, again, showing the world that they are the best, right? In second place, Germany. Germany, again, I think now, as we record, has the most World Cup trophies, but coming in second to Brazil that year. What really stood out to me as far as the top teams, Turkey and host South Korea actually played in the third place game, with Turkey defeating South Korea. To me, this was a shocker, right? Turkey is never in the top of the world standings, but yet here they are defeating the host nation and also scoring the fastest goal in World Cup history in 10.8 seconds to open the third place game. I remember watching this, Mike. I was working at Johnny Rockets Fireworks over the summer, and we had the game on. South Korea opens the game. They have the initial kickoff. You tap it forward because the rule hadn't been changed to play it directly back yet. They tap it forward. Forward passes it to the midfielder. Midfielder passes it back to the defender, but the Turkish striker picks that pass off and goes straight in on goal. 10.8 seconds, 1-0 Turkey over South Korea. Just an incredible play. But like we said, U.S. ends up coming in 8th. They get to the round of 16 in that one.
Quarterfinals.
Yeah, a couple other things to note this for. France, the defending champ, loses in the group stage. They don't even advance to the knockout round. So that was a huge shock to world football. But then again, we've seen it in more recent iterations with Spain and Germany doing it. So maybe it's not as shocking as we once thought. Now, South Korea, also the first Asian, African, or Oceania nation to reach the semifinals. The only other nations to reach the semifinals have come from Europe, South America, or North America, if you go back, because the U.S. haven't gotten to the semifinals, I think, in the modern era. To be honest. The other thing, Mike, this was the scandal that rocked it. And I don't know how much you remember this, but the scandal around it was that the officials really favored South Korea. That the South Korean team, and you can go find videos on YouTube of this. There are tons of fans around the world who are pissed off at South Korea and the officials for this. South Korean teams manhandled their oppositions. They bullied, they elbowed, they kicked, they hacked teams to bits to advance into that semifinals. And the officials just looked the other way on it. So that was the scandal from an officiating standpoint. Now, have you seen this, Mike? And you're an Italian fan. And South Korea, I think, beat up Italy pretty bad, I think, in one of the knockout rounds, if memory recalls. Memory serves me right. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I do remember that Italy game, but I didn't know anything about the scandal. But I mean, is it really a shock? FIFA and a scandal. I mean, we're getting ready to play a World Cup in Qatar or Qatar, where, it was proven there were bribes and money under the table. For that World Cup to be given to Qatar or Qatar, and they, for some reason, won't take it away still. I don't know why. The human rights violations are one thing, then the bribery stuff's another. Just crazy scandals in FIFA all the time. So maybe now things have turned for the better after that whole Qatar thing. But it doesn't shock me one bit that South Korea had paid off the referees and paid them very handsomely to help them out in these games.
So I don't know of any actual payoffs, but that is the speculation there. But getting to the United States, speaking of the knockout rounds, the United States matched up with Mexico in the knockout round, and the U.S. defeated them 2-0. 2-0, Mike. This was 2-0 World Cup edition. The first time the U.S. ever beat Mexico 2-0 was back in 2001, playing in Columbus, Ohio, in Mapfre Stadium there. But it means so much more when you're doing it in a World Cup. And to this point, Mexico had always kind of been like that big CONCACAF brother who's like, okay, that's great that you're trying, United States, but we'll take it from here. We're just going to beat you down. We're going to defeat you. The U.S. hadn't really strung together victories against Mexico, but then to come out in the World Cup and defeat Mexico in the knockout rounds, especially 2-0, that scoreline, severely, in my mind, drastically escalated the rivalry between these two soccer countries, right? Between these two soccer crazy, Mexico for a lifetime, U.S. finally building it up. Did you notice anything from this World Cup from 2002 to now that really resonates USA versus Mexico?
It's nasty, man. This, it's always, there's no such thing as a friendly between the U.S. and Mexico. We've seen that, even when they do play so-called friendlies, and it was a great game. 2-0 again, the first one in Columbus, and then this one obviously meant 35,000 times more, being that it was in a knockout round game in the World Cup. Big deal. Great game.
Absolutely. But let's go back to our group stage. How did the United States get there? Well, Mike, they were in a real tough group here. They drew into a group with Portugal, host nation South Korea, as well as a very, very good Poland team coming out of European qualifying. So USA, Portugal, South Korea, and Poland. And gosh, that 1-1-1 record for the U.S. does it for them again. They open with a huge shocker, defeating Portugal 3-2, the pre-tournament group favorite and one of the, I'd say, dark horses to win the World Cup, as they typically are. But in this one, we get goals from O'Brien and McBride, as well as an own goal from Costa on Portugal, and that is enough to get USA those all-important 3 points in their first game. I just remember, Mike, as let's see, I can't even remember how old I was in 2002. I can't do the math in my head, right? 18 years old, 17 years old. Like this was massive as a soccer fan in the United States. You have a blue blood soccer nation like Portugal. Guys who like Figo, Ronaldo, so like some of the world's best players have come out of Portugal. And the U.S. just beat them in the opening game of the World Cup group stage.
Yeah.
It can't be undersold, especially at this time in U.S. soccer's development. As a kid watching it, like I'm trying to explain this to other people. I'm like, there's no comparison. Like I can't put it in the context of American sports for you. Like it's not the Miracle on Ice, but at the same time, like it's almost that for us, right? Like
right.
How did you feel about the U.S. knocking off Portugal to open their World Cup?
Oh, it was a shocker. I mean, it's kind of like the NCAA tournament March Madness type stuff, like the 15 seed beating the 2 seed, right? Like this was like a wow, did that really just happen? United States I mean, they made the knockout rounds in the 94 World Cup. I mean, they just kind of push over in world soccer pretty much the whole way through, outside of 1950, 1930, whatever year it was. So you're thinking, another World Cup for the U.S. Let's see if they can maybe win a game, whatever. And then they go out and beat a Portugal team that you're thinking, like, no way, that can't happen. So that's probably the best comparison for me. It was a shock to me when it happened because it was kind of like that March Madness college basketball type deal where the big upset happened.
Well, unfortunately, they can't ride that momentum. They end up drawing South Korea 1-1 in their next game. Goal scored by Clint Mathis for the U.S. Strike force, right? You've got Brian McBride, Clint Mathis, DeMarcus Beasley, Josh Wolf, and Landon Donovan. Like, those are the poster boys for this World Cup roster. The strike force for club and country. That was the whole marketing thing. I loved it. I ate it up, right? And Clint Mathis, playing for the Metro Stars, I think at the time, ends up getting the goal here for the United States. However, they can't hold on to the lead. Some terrible defending allows the South Korean player to get a free header in and puts a ball into the back of the net. South Korea salvages a point for the U.S. Huge letdown, Mike. But you know what? I guess looking back, you've got the host nation, South Korea, who eventually ends up in the semifinal. Maybe not the worst result, right? Would you agree with that?
No, not a bad result when you think about it. When you're coming off a victory against Portugal, if they didn't win that game against Portugal, then it wouldn't have been as good of a result. But then, of course, too, you got a little bit of this going into the referees' pockets there.
Allegedly.
So I'm sure that probably to play a little bit in game later on. But that's something to think about too. And it's a host nation, and it's a draw. And you know what? It's still a good result for the U.S.
Sure. The only thing then is you're sitting on the edge of your seat during this Poland USA game, because Poland comes in, dismantles the United States, shows just how good of a team they are, shows the United States like you've got a long way to go even to get to kind of the middle to lower tiers of Europe here. Again, Poland, every now and then, every World Cup cycle or so, they have a great squad. And this time they came out, rocked the United States. Fortunately, though, the results of the South Korea-Portugal game were such that the United States and South Korea do get to advance out of this group. Donovan gets the lone goal for the U.S. in that Poland game. Mike, I don't know if there's much to say. It seemed kind of a letdown after the first two matches for the United States, and maybe they were looking ahead to the knockout round. But again, not the way you want to end a group stage, though.
No, definitely not. But they bounced back, and they bounced back well. Poland's a good team. I mean, even today's standards, I mean, they haven't been in many World Cups recently, but look at some of the talent that they have, like Robert Lewandowski, one of the best strikers in the world is Polish plays for the Polish national team, right up there in the Nations League right now. So Poland is a good soccer country where the U.S. was 20 years ago. It's not a huge shock.
Right. So now let's get into those knockout rounds. They, by some twist of fate, end up being matched up with Mexico, right? And they have to play Mexico in the knockout round. But you know what? They get the victory. 2-0, 2-0 goals by Brian McBride and Landon Donovan. And wouldn't you know, that really sets the stage for me for the U.S.-Mexico rivalry. You've got these two guys in McBride and Donovan who are front and center at the USA-Mexico rivalry. They're scoring the goals here. They continue to represent the United States against El Tri in a number of matches throughout CONCACAF, throughout World Cup qualifying and all that sort of thing. So this, to me, really elevates it because Mexico had never taken the United States seriously. Now they had to, but then Mexico also always looking for revenge over this, because really this was Mexico's kind of best chance to make a deep run into the World Cup. By the way, Mexico has never advanced past the round of 16 except for two times, Mike, in 1970 and 1986 when they hosted the World Cup. And even then, they just made it to the quarterfinals, one more round. So, Mike, the United States has, if you look historically, had a much better result, had a couple better results than Mexico in the World Cup. Now, they haven't had the run of qualifications that Mexico has had over the last 50 plus years. You know what? USA still third place, 1930 World Cup. They still got that they can hang their hat on. That's for sure. But what are your impressions then coming out of this knockout round and then looking at the USA's next matchup against Germany?
I see this as pretty much the high of United States soccer. This is, the third place, finish. That is what it is. But in recent era, this is the greatest moment for United States men's soccer, to me. Beating your rival like that across the world in a World Cup in a knockout round it doesn't get any better than that, right? The only thing that could come close to it would probably be the Portugal game that the first game of the tournament when they beat Portugal. And the U.S. has had a few, like the Confederations Cup. They've played a few, pulled off a few upsets here and there. But this is on a whole nother level. The United States has never won a World Cup. They've never been in a final.
Not yet.
Not yet. Now, until that happens, something like this, and we'll see. Maybe, in 2022 when they make a run to like the semis, with McKinney Golasso from 40 yards out, something like that. I don't know. But until we see something like that, or 2026 when they beat Mexico on home soil in the semifinals to go to the final, that'll be the best moment ever. And then until the next week when they are like 4 days later when they win the World Cup on home soil, when they beat Canada, I'm just kidding, whatever. But this
I like the optimism
for me,
for sure,
as a U.S. soccer fan.
And then they move on to face none other than world power Germany, and they end up losing that game 1-0. That in itself was a shocker, right? And if I was able to bet back then, take the under and take the U.S. to cover, if they had those sort of soccer bets, right? This was insane. The U.S. played out of their mind, went toe to toe with one of the best footballing nations in the world. And you know what, Mike? Here's two things to keep in mind in this game. One World Cup cycle prior, the United States played in a group stage game against Germany in World Cup 98. They lost 3-0. So now here we are 4 years later in a knockout round, and they're going toe-to-toe with Germany. They end up losing 1-0, and it was probably one of the best games. The U.S. players walked off with their heads high, and the German players knew they got away with one. And they especially got away with one because going back and looking at a lot of the game film here and a lot of the highlight reels and things, there was actually a handball that was not called against Germany in the box. It was on the goal line. The U.S. would have, I think at that point, equalized, I believe. But you know what? But it didn't fall their way. And that's what happens in these big World Cup games. You need to get those one or two breaks. The U.S. just didn't catch the break they needed in this game against Germany. But I'll tell you, you're right, Mike. This was definitely one of the highest points for USMNT soccer, at least when it comes to their World Cup history, because as we will see as we explore 2006 and 2010 in our next couple of videos, the U.S. had a very difficult time replicating some of their results here. But let's get now into the roster. Let's look at some of the players who the United States had playing for them during this World Cup. And I know it's something you've always liked, is to look at the clubs over the years. Going back to 1990, seeing guys playing for like the Milwaukee Wave or the San Francisco, whatever, Bay Area, something or other. But now, who are these guys playing for? You've got MLS players, but you also have a mix of European players, like Frankie Hayduck playing for Bayer Leverkusen. Greg Berhalter is playing for Crystal Palace. John O'Brien, Ajax. However you fans want to pronounce it. And my connection, Joe Max Moore is playing for Everton. Like, got a very respectable roster here, Mike. What do you think about these guys?
Well, you can see the shift in U.S. soccer. I mean, you look at just the roster from 1990. Go check out that video, right? We're talking about the Milwaukee Wave in the Bay Area, the Bay Hawks, or whatever the hell they were called. And now you've got Blackburn, you've got Crystal Palace, Bayer Leverkusen, Ajax, Everton, Sunderland, Fulham, Hanover 96, Tottenham, right? Like these are big time clubs around the world and in Europe. And then, of course, the rest of them are all in MLS. So there's there's really no USL or NASL or anything like that. It's strictly MLS at that time. And you've got your European guys that are playing in the European leagues as well as the guys that are in the MLS side. So a lot better from the club standpoint. And you look at some of these, I mean, these legends of the game in U.S. soccer. And this tournament has a lot to do with that. If they flame out, if they don't beat Portugal in that first game and they flame out in the group stage, are these guys USA legends? Probably not. Maybe because they did well in qualifying and, they had the original Dos a Cero in 2001, right? Now that turned some heads and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, Greg Berhalter, now your current national team coach for United States men's soccer team. Frankie Hayduk, Brad Friedel.
Columbus Crew icon, Frankie Hayduk, right?
Yeah, right. Yep. And then Casey Keller, Tony Miola. I mean, those guys are household names, and they played at some big clubs over in Europe. But Kobe Jones, right? I mean, look at Kobe Jones, 153 caps he ended up getting. Just Jeff Agoos, 127 caps. Ernie Stewart's there. A lot of big names in U.S. soccer. Eddie Pope, just an awesome roster altogether.
Right. And looking at some of those big names that stand out, the ones that going through the roster, the ones that jump out to me, obviously for their continued impact on the game here in the United States, Greg Berhalter, current USMNT coach, Pablo Mastroeni, who took the MLS to great heights early on in his career there. Let me pull up his thing. He's playing for the Rapids at the time of this World Cup. You have John O'Brien, who, again, another household name, gets the goal against Portugal, playing overseas, representing the United States there. Claudio Reyna, he is playing for Fulham, I believe, at the time. Nope, Sunderland, excuse me. Captain of the U.S. Squad here. He's to a lot of people, he's the original Captain America and was referred to as Captain America by players in the English League when he was playing over there because of what they did in this World Cup, because of his reputation with the United States men's national team. You've got a guy like Steve Cherundolo, who's playing over in Germany for Hanover. That's a name that sticks with U.S. soccer for years. He played way past any time any player ever or anyone gave him credit for. Cherundolo, I think he is also in the Soccer Hall of Fame, or if not, he should be for everything that he has done for the United States men's national team. You've got guys like Josh Wolf and DeMarcus Beasley, some Chicago Fire names who then have gone on, and Josh Wolf currently, I forget his coaching position right now here. DeMarcus Beasley.
Austin FC.
Austin FC, thank you, the expansion team. DeMarcus Beasley, who was this close to being one of only a handful of guys to play in 5 World Cups. Unfortunately, the U.S. didn't qualify in 2018. But like how much he had done for MLS, for USMNT, and for Americans abroad can't be understated. Brian McBride, another Chicago Fire connection. Chicago Fire had some good guys with this World Cup roster here, Mike. And then, of course, Landon Donovan, one of the all-time, if not the all-time great United States men's national team player, as well as you can't forget Tony Sane, a defender who, again, playing in Germany, and then, just a big name for the U.S. So, again, talking about all of that, this was kind of like a new era of U.S. soccer for me, that they kind of got rid of the we're just happy to be here mentality, and we can compete with the rest of the world. So that is my takeaway, as well as I remember waking up at 2 a.m. to watch these games over in Korea and Japan time zones. And just sleeping in the basement so I wouldn't wake up my parents or my sister, so I could get up at 2 a.m. and watch all these games. It was just an incredible experience, and to be able to talk to other soccer fans and be like, did you stay up late or did you wake up early to watch the games? That was always the conversation that we had. So those are some of my memories and my reflecting on this time in U.S. soccer, Mike. How about for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was the best World Cup that United States ever had. Even now, you look back at what we'll be reviewing 06 and 10 and 14. Nothing comes close to this. And yeah, I mean, for me, it was it was waking up early. I was waking up early to watch, and it was so weird. 2 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever the hell the time slots were. It was super early. And that's, that was kind of part of the fun, right? So overall, great World Cup for the United States. And unfortunately, we haven't been back there since, but we will be soon.
Mike, I'm with you. And I really think that we can draw on our U.S. soccer memory, like as a soccer nation, as U.S. Soccer Federation, to draw on kind of what these guys did. And now we do see that next generation of players coming up. So with that, I want to thank all of our viewers and our listeners. Thanks to you, Mike, as well. If you'd like to continue to get all of our awesome soccer content, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Find us on Twitter at SOP Soccer, on Facebook at Sons of a Pitch Soccer. And as always, we thank you for joining us. Enjoy all this excitement around the USMNT that we have now and that we've had in the past. Thanks very much.